Welcome to episode 3 of In Search Of. I am your host, Jeb Stewart Johnston. Today we have on a good friend of mine and a mentor for me in the fitness industry, Sean Hyson. Sean is the author, most recently, of the Men's Health Encyclopedia of Muscle, everything you need to build the body you want. It is by Men's Health. And it is a phenomenal, like it says, encyclopedia of everything training. I mean, he delves deep, really gets into some esoteric training forms, but also all the kind of things you've heard of over the years, and some you haven't. He interviews some of the best minds in the industry. It's really an incredible read, an incredible resource for anyone who's just interested in fitness or wants to make this their career. Sean's previously written 101 best workouts of all time for men's fitness, and another workout book that I use a lot if I'm stuck in programming, I need something different, travel workouts, lots of really great resources in that as well. You can find Sean on Instagram at Sean Hyson, and there was a link to purchase his newest book there. And you can also find him on Facebook, obviously under Sean Hyson, and on Twitter. He is a journalist, after all, and those are the people who still use Twitter. But I really hope you enjoy this. We really dig deep. We get into some cool stuff. We talk about his life, what it's meant to him to be successful. Like I said, this is a guy who means the world to me. I couldn't respect him anymore. And I hope you guys can kind of get out of it some of the lessons I've learned from him, because they've been huge. And I think he's just a great asset to this world, and especially in the fitness community as a whole. So enjoy. Here it is, Sean Hyson. I guess let's just start here with Sean Hyson, author of Men's Health Encyclopedia of Muscle, everything you need to build the body you want. So I guess just start off. Let's kind of talk about the book a minute. Let's tell people about what it is and what people can expect to find in it.
Yeah, 2 years ago, Men's Health reached out to me. I'd written another book for Men's Fitness in the past. They knew I was good for it, and they said, you want to write a book about all these different workout topics? And if it had been like another abs book or something cheesy, I would have said no, but I was really excited. They wanted an encyclopedia that laid out exactly how to do all these different kind of meathead techniques that guys like you and I, Jeb, have learned about for years or heard about, but didn't necessarily know how to do the best possible way or how to apply scientifically in our workouts. Things like conjugate periodization, drop sets, supersets, the constant tension principle, all the stuff that you read about in bodybuilding magazines, Muscle and Fitness and Flex when you were a kid, but you never really got like a very clear vision on how to use properly. So I started digging into it. I talked to a lot of trainers and bodybuilders and looked at the science, the latest research, and dug up everything I could on how to do this stuff right.
Now, when you were kind of digging in, where did you start? Because it's such a huge topic. Like, how do you really dig in and kind of to break down where you want to get with this thing?
Well, I wanted to find the most credible people for each one of these topics that I could. So if you're talking about something like, constant tension or the priority principle, like those are like old school bodybuilding ideas. So I thought, let me find not so much an old school bodybuilder, but a guy who kind of came up with those and has experimented with those ideas, and who would be great for that. So I found Ben Pakulski, who's like widely known as one of the most well-read, smart, modern bodybuilders. So he had a lot of great tips in the book. We talked about the mind-muscle connection, for instance, and a lot of people just think that's about thinking about the muscle when you're training it, but it goes deeper than that. You actually, according to him, he was saying you should really think about the muscle contracting and the two ends of it shortening, coming together, because that's what muscles do. They'll just shorten when they contract. And if you picture your muscles doing that when you're doing an exercise, it really helps you build a connection mentally into what you're training. So he was, one guy I reached out to, and then Brett Contreras is a great resource. Brad Schoenfeld, those guys had a lot of the latest research. So I went online, looked at the studies that they had done or they had found for other things, and I just tried to find the best possible source I could for each one of these different categories.
It's cool because I think right now it's starting to get a little bit better, but we saw such a split in fitness, and where it became either anecdotal or evidence based, and no one would agree that the other person had it right. And I think there's a really good blend in here of because what the evidence is basically showing is that all the anecdotal evidence was actually correct, and it's nice to see those two things kind of mirroring each other in this.
Yeah, I think Alan Cosgrove, I believe it was, said that science shows us what we already know. If you're in the gym and you've been training for a while, you're going to be way ahead of a lot of these guys who are just studying this stuff, because the fact remains that they haven't studied these bodybuilding techniques that much. There just isn't that much research on it. So going into the gym and figuring things out for yourself is still really the ultimate best way to learn.
So obviously this is a pretty big task. It's a pretty big accomplishment. Men's Health being kind of the pinnacle of fitness books. So, a big part of this podcast is really kind of talking to people about, how they got to where they are, how they've created this successful environment, and so. I'm really kind of trying to dig deep. So I just want to kind of dig back all the way kind of to start. Where'd you grow up? Like, talk to me kind of about your childhood, like what growing up was like, and how you kind of even, started down this path into this world.
This podcast is about to take a very dark turn, my friend. No, I grew up on Long Island, and I was, you're kind of a classic story. I was a skinny, very unathletic kid, very shy, and was picked on a lot, and I just always kind of looked to pro wrestlers and action heroes in movies as sort of heroes, and I never really dreaming that one day I could emulate them in any way, but I just was fascinated by strength, and I wanted to build up the weak side of me, and so I found my path to fitness in college, and I got really into working out in college, and I was also really into writing at the same time, and to quote our mutual friend Ben Bruno, who has a similar story, I figured, well, I like writing, I like fitness, maybe I'll write about fitness. And that was simply as simple as my mind works. And I got into it after college. I got a job at Men's Fitness at the bottom, just sort of like sweeping up the place at night when when they closed it down. And was editorial assistant. I worked my way up to fitness editor, got certified CSCS, and I've just been writing about fitness ever since. I'm trying to distill it down and make it easier for people like me to understand and get the most out of it and make faster progress than I did.
So let's jump a little bit back, because did you intern there before you got the job?
I interned at the company, and truth be told, my father worked there, and he got me in the front door, so I got a chance to, a pretty good break that most other people don't get. So I started there as an editorial assistant in 2003. And
because what I'm touching on here, what I'm getting at is there was some editorial articles for another publication under that umbrella. I think it was like the biggest baby ever born on Long Island.
Yeah. When I was in college, I interned for the same company. They owned a lot of the tabloid magazines, and Weekly World News. That was that tabloid that for years, it's out of business now, but at the time, for about 30 years, that was the one you saw on the newsstand at the grocery store checkout line. It would have all, the UFOs are landing, and the Bat Boy was found in the cave, like all those really sensational, outrageous fake stories. And yeah, they threw me into one of them one time. I played a kid who was born premature, then grew up to be 7 feet tall. So they doctored some photos of me, and that was one of my early claims to fame, was I got to appear in the Weekly World News.
It's crazy to think that whole genre is kind of gone. I mean, I guess it still exists. It's just on the internet now, and people believe it.
Kind of killed it. I think things like The Onion and all these other humor websites just sort of stole their thunder. But when you think about it, Weekly World News is pretty ahead of its time. That was probably the first one, along with maybe National Lampoon magazine, that really did that kind of wacky stuff.
Yeah. So you got into journalism, obviously, and fitness, and those things kind of coalesced and gave you this career path. So you, I mean, you really came into that world of publishing and of journalism at a time when it was kind of at its height, and you really rode through, I mean, an industry really completely changing. I mean, what was it like to go through something and kind of and watch from the inside as the entirety of the industry changed?
Well, I think I got into it really as it was on its downslope. I always got into magazines and people were really flooding to the internet. So, it was sad to watch, this empire that Joe Weider had built, Muscle and Fitness, Men's Fitness, these big time magazines that at one time had really been the only resource for guys like you and me to go to get information on this stuff. To watch that sort of dwindle and see the internet rise and the rise of all these online entrepreneurs, these trainers turned online talking heads. It was going through a period of transition, and it was cool to kind of learn, both ways. I learned the magazine and the writing skills from, the editorial department, the magazine, but at the same time, I got to learn in real time from a lot of these great, coaches that you and I know and have talked to, and so I've always felt like I kind of had feet in both worlds. I was very into training and very into the journalism.
Yeah, it's luckily a lot of those guys you talk about have made such a good transition into this kind of new world, and I think they're great coaches, great trainers. So it's just their skill set translates kind of overall.
Yeah, the best coaches, almost without exception, have become the best online leaders.
Mm-hmm. So when you were here, we're talking about New York City. You started. I'm sorry, you said you started 2003. 2003.
Yeah.
So you moved to New York straight from you were upstate New York at college. You came to New York City, got an apartment, started the whole thing. What was it like, being young, being in the industry, also being in kind of fitness, so kind of straddling this world of like, hey, I'm my 20s in New York City, and then also having this interest in gyms, fitness, and at the time, I mean, the fitness scene in New York was a lot different as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a total prisoner of my own passion, and it's funny because at Men's Fitness, you'd think that a lot of people there would be really into working out, but that wasn't the case. They were just professional journalists and professional editorial people. That they just looked at it like a job. I was the only one who was going to the gym. I was the only one who was packing a lunch and bringing healthy food in. And the big joke around the office was how many packs of cigarettes do you smoke a day?
Yeah.
And I was the only one really living that lifestyle. So that gave me just a big advantage because I was just so naturally interested in the topics. And I took it upon myself to do a lot of research on my own time and do whatever it took to get ahead. So it was only about 6 months later after I started that they made me the fitness editor. So that just shows you I didn't have a lot of competition. I didn't have a lot of stones I had to step over to get there. So, yeah, I was just super into it right away. And it's I always tell people I really can't give you much advice about career or business or any of the technical aspects of getting ahead, with what you want to do. I've always been guided by passion, and I learned just by loving what I do.
And from the outside looking in, I'm sure for a lot of people it seems like you look at it as a 9-to-5 job, but I remember what it was like hours wise for you. Just working there, it was the constant pressure of I think you put it so succinctly when you said the magazine comes out every month. It doesn't care if you want a vacation or anything like that. So it's like there's never a let up. It's not like a regular job where you finish a project and you're like, oh, I got a little let up for a while to something. So it's just this constant pressure, but I'm sure that pressure at the same time, if it's something you love, it really can drive you to be really great at what you do.
Yeah, I mean, there's no stopping the flow of time. A magazine has to come out no matter what, and you're never working at one issue at a time. You got to, get stuff ahead. So you're always trying to think 3 or 6 months in advance, and what articles are going to be timely then. And at my company too, which was like most of the publishing industry, we had really cut down and consolidated a lot. They were trying to work as much out of as small a staff as possible to save costs. So I started at Men's Fitness, and then it wasn't too long before they had me working on Muscle Fitness as well, and Muscle and Fitness Hers, and Flex, and sporadic other titles here and there. So I didn't do just one job for very long. I was working on multiple titles at once and trying to keep them all straight in my head and not reuse content to another. Try to specialize. If am I writing for women today? Am I writing for older guys today? Am I writing for younger guys? Am I writing for bodybuilders? Like every day it was every hour even it was a different challenge.
Yeah, and I'm sure the learning to write and all those different voices just improve your writing exponentially, like as you went.
Yeah, for anyone who wants to write, I always try to tell them the secret is it's twofold. It's reading and it's writing. You got to read a lot and you've got to write and rewrite again, and stop yourself, go back and read what you wrote. I mean, we're in a culture now where everything moves so fast and people fire off these text messages and emails without thinking about it. And it always blows my mind when I get like professional emails from people who want to do work with me, or they want to write for the website I work for now, and like it's clearly this guy didn't even read over the sentence before he clicked the button. It's like there's spelling errors and it makes no sense. And it's the simplest thing you do is just go back and try to read what you just wrote and see if it makes sense in your own head. And if you see that there's something that's iffy there's no way anybody else but you is going to understand it.
Right. Yeah, I love just that fact of like reading something and I'm like, okay, this sounds jumbly. It just doesn't flow off my tongue. Like what can I do to kind of go back and make it, even if it's just taking a word out, to make it flow better and just sound more natural.
Yeah, and I think people make the mistake when they think about writing for a big audience and they think, oh, I got to sound smart. I got to, impress everybody so they'll think that I'm the best. And it's really just the opposite. You want to really dumb it down. You want to simplify. Don't use big words, use small words. Don't use long sentences, use short sentences. Chop it up as much as you can. Make it as simple as you can, because there's nothing more embarrassing for a writer or somebody reading your writing than to read this long, flowery paragraph that when you get to the end of it, you have no idea what the guy was trying to say.
Yeah. No, and I think that's, it's one thing I can say is like all of your writing, over the years, I can very much like within a paragraph, I know it's yours. Which is cool. I mean, it's it's whether it's the sense of humor, the delivery, regardless of the topic, I get a feel for it, and it's you can still go in there and approach a very in depth, very complex topic without trying to I think a lot of, especially more of the evidence based people, they almost tend to shout their audience down so as to remove any doubt instead of inviting them to actually want to explore the topic further, which I think you do a really good job at.
Thanks, man. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's some good tips for people who want to be writers. I think a lot of people that listen to this too would also very interested in how to get their work published, whether it be on websites now, whether it be blogs, whether it be traditional publishing route through magazines. You work as a publisher, you work as a content director now. I mean, you're constantly doing this. What are your kind of hip tips and hints for people that want to break into that world?
Well, first of all, shameless plug here, but if you go to writingforfitness.com, we did an ebook. Lou Schuler and John Romanello and I did this ebook a bunch of years ago about just that topic. It's about how to break into the fitness writing business, whether you want to do it with magazines or if you want to blog or get a book deal. We cover a lot of that. And just to give you some quick tips now, I mean, it's kind of a shaky proposition, but one simple way is if you want to write for a magazine, try to look at the masthead, which is the list of all the people who work for the magazine. It's usually in the first couple pages of any issue. And try to find the editor who's most appropriate for what you want to write about. So if you want to write a fitness article, try to find who the fitness or exercise editor is for that magazine. If you want to write about food or recipes, nutrition, try to find out who the food or nutrition editor is. And then you can sort of stalk that person, be it on social media or try to find their email through their company website. They're usually not that hard to find. And reach out and just say, hey, look, in a very succinct email with some writing samples attached to it, here's some writing I've done. This is what I want to write for you. I'm happy to do it for free just to see how you like it, and then we can build a relationship from there. But don't be afraid to reach out and make that contact, because while it might seem like a shot in the dark, and sometimes it is, the fact is that people in the editorial world are all these editors. They work really hard. They don't make much money most of the time, and they're bogged down and working at a fast pace, and they would love the help. So if you can write and you can take a little burden off them, you're going to be in demand.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it's like anything else, relationship building. If you can build that relationship too, it's like the people I know that are editing now. They're so busy. That's the other thing I've talked to people is it's like don't be afraid to follow up with people regardless of what it is, whether it's publishing anything. People are so busy now. It's not that they're ignoring you half the time. They see it and they're like, I'm going to get back to that and just go right past it.
Yeah, try to put a witty line in your subject line and get to the point quickly in the first sentence or two of the email.
So, men's fitness, obviously the big bellwether change for you. So I think, again, talking about kind of how you became who you became, I think a very important part of that is mentorship. And so we've got to talk about at what point you really grew due to your mentorships that you went through. And, I think a big part of this story has to be talking about Sean Perrine, who I think was a great mentor to you and obviously someone that really helped shape you. I can't think about something more appropriate than an encyclopedia of muscle. The guy had encyclopedic knowledge of such things. So I think, can you talk about Sean Perrine? Tell about who he was and kind of what he meant to you and how he helped you develop.
Well, Sean Perrine was, like me, a lifelong fan of bodybuilding and training and was just the most devout fitness guy you ever met in your life. This guy really lived the whole lifestyle. There wasn't an ounce of hypocrisy in him. He grew up training with Steve Mihalek, Mr. America on Long Island. He was a legend in the 70s in the bodybuilding world. And Sean got that influence, and he was such a talented guy. He did so many different things. He was a salesman and an actor and a artist, graphic design guy, and then he became a fitness journalist just purely out of passion. And he worked for Flex for many years, and then he became editor-in-chief of Muscle and Fitness after I'd been there for a little while. And it was just he was a mentor, but he was also just a kindred spirit. It was great to be with a guy who just instinctively was on the same page with you about what articles we needed to write, and he was so into, like I was, getting to the truth about all these different training methods. And I'm sorry he passed a year ago. He didn't get to see this book that came out, but I dedicated it to him. The Encyclopedia of Muscle is dedicated to Sean Perrine, and he really was an example of what fitness should do for your life, how it can make you a better person, and through strength and through gaining the confidence and self-esteem that you get from making progress with your body, it helps open your mind and make you a hero to other people and somebody who's strong enough to lead by example. And that was him. He was always dedicating his time to other people. He was always being generous and giving to causes that he believed in and lifting other people up. And he's a tremendous force that I will miss in my life forever.
Yeah, I think again, you saw a lot of kind of tributes to him with his book came out. So many people that said, he'd be so proud. But again, it was one of those things that kind of just triggered in my mind because both you and him are two people I think of when I think of like literally that encyclopedic knowledge that comes to mind of just like so many different aspects of this, world. And yours actually translates into a lot of other weird stuff like The Simpsons and Seinfeld and pro wrestling, but just that kind of passion. I mean, just like hearing him commentate on bodybuilding or talking about, you realize that he knew more about this topic than probably most of the people up there that he was discussing it with, from a historic standpoint and just all the way through it. It made me something that I wasn't really that interested in bodybuilding. I was interested in the training, but the sport and the history of it, I became very interested in it by listening to him talk about it, just because of me not realizing what it really stood for, what it really meant. And to see that, it's very cool to see that in any industry of someone that's that passionate and has also been successful doing it.
Yeah, I think one of the great things you could say about Sean, he left us too young, but I'm very glad and satisfied to report that, like me, he got to meet pretty much all of his idols growing up. I mean, he was the world's biggest Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, and not only did he get to interview Arnold and meet him and spend time with him, the two became legitimate friends, and Arnold spoke at his memorial service, and they shared like a real bond in Sean's final few years. And there's not many people who can say that. And you could be the world's biggest football fan, but you're probably never going to meet Tom Brady. There's so many other ways that you can go in life. Most people don't get to meet their heroes, and if they do, they're often disappointed. And Sean not only got to meet his heroes, but he got to have meaningful interactions with them, and I'm very glad that he got that before he passed.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, men's fitness, muscle and fitness. You reached a point. I remember we had this conversation where you said you needed a change, and it wasn't necessarily the magazine, but again, coming back to that, the magazine being out every month. I think your exact quote you said was, "If I can't ever take a vacation, I need to move somewhere where I feel like I'm on vacation." So, a big transition kind of in your life was you left New York and went out to L.A. Talk about that a little.
Yeah, I rolled the dice. I had been in New York for more than 12 years at that point, and I just was burned out on living in tiny studio apartments. I had my last one, I was there for 8 years. I had a view of a brick wall. It was just, my quality of life was pretty poor, and I thought, yeah, I got some friends in California. I've been out there a few times. It's the cradle of fitness, good air and the ocean and the sun. Like, I need this. This would be good for me. And I figured, like, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna see if I can work remotely out there, and if they let me go, then they let me go, and I'll figure it out from there. But it comes to a point, Jeb, where it's like it's scarier to go on doing the same thing in your life than it is to uproot yourself and change completely. So that was my attitude. And so I talked to my CEO of my company at the time, and I said, like, I really want to go to California, and I hope I have your blessing, but I'm prepared to do whatever I have to do. And it's a testament to the loyalty I had shown already and the job that I was doing. They allowed me to go, no really more questions asked, and I moved out to LA, and I worked there for a year and a half, and I got a new job, and now I'm in Texas.
Yeah, so let's talk about the new job, because I think I think for again, there's so much about this podcast, so much about this thing I'm trying to talk about is people's success, but it's about change. And like you said, like, a lot of times the impetus for change is just being so afraid of being stuck where you are that you don't have a choice. Now, a lot of people will take that fear that staying the same, and that's comfort for them. But for a lot of us, I think, to really and again, this, my definition of success is has nothing to do with money or anything, but finding that kind of balance of who you need to be, and that impetus for change that can be so fulfilling, but you do have to take that jump. So when you take this move from Men's Fitness, now a job that was secure, something you've been doing for a long time, something you tons of respect in the industry. You built up a lot of capital, and doing something similar, but a pretty big shift. You went and took a job with Onnit.
Yeah, I work for Onnit now, and I had met the CEO, Aubrey Marcus, at a fitness business conference a year prior, and when I was trying to go out and network a little bit and set something up so that I had something to jump to if I needed it. And yeah, he invited me down here, and it was as everything that he had promised. It was as advertised. It's a great company. We're up and coming, and we look at fitness as a very holistic thing. It's not just about muscles anymore, having the six pack. It's, getting your mind right and eating healthy foods and having this synergistic approach or understanding that everything links into something else. And I couldn't be more passionate about it now. It's everything that I ever did at Men's Fitness plus so much more. And I mean, just going back to the idea of change, I think too many of us make the mistake of just waiting, like I did, until you're just desperate and you can't take it anymore, and you've got things can't get any worse, so you've got to make them better. And I think we all need to be a little bit more courageous and get over these fears that we're gonna, if we make some big change in our lives, we're gonna lose something for it. Because most people I know, when they make a shift like that, it almost always ends up for the better if they are. If their heart's in the right place when they do it. So, yeah, you've got to just understand that you don't need to let things reach their darkest, lowest point. You can take initiative in your life. And looking back, I wish that I'd asked to move out there years earlier.
Yeah, it's a lot of this for me is always like, I could have done this earlier, but maybe the outcome would have been different, therefore. So, it's always like all these little things, like you said. I feel like all of it's so holistic. It all builds on itself, and that year and a half in California built on bringing you to Texas. So for a guy that's from Long Island, lived in New York City for 12 years, out in L.A. after that, Texas. What was that shift like?
Well, I mean, getting used to people saying the word "y'all" took a long time, and I still refuse to say it myself. But I'm in Austin, Texas. So excuse me. Let's be clear. I'm in the blue dot in the tomato soup of the state. So Austin is a melting pot, much like in New York or in LA, and you've got a lot of different people from both of those cities and elsewhere around the world. So there's a lot of great diversity here and a lot of ideas being exchanged, and it's not the tumbleweeds rolling by, cowboy hat, hillbilly kind of redneck stereotype that you hear associated with a lot of Texas and the South. And I couldn't live happily in a place like that. But Austin has been very good to me, and my quality of life is much better. And I find that people here are really outgoing in a way that they haven't been in other cities that I've lived in. I think that's just a testament to the conditioning of this environment has.
Yeah, it's become a very big tech city, right?
Yeah, we've got Dell here, and Whole Foods is based here. Yeah, it's a healthy, open-minded, pretty liberal place.
So, so your role at Onnit has been as content director, and you've been there what now? 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
So what exactly is your role now? Like you said, it's everything you did at Men's Fitness and more. Run us through a day in the life of.
Well, when I got here, Onnit's reputation was pretty much all from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. It was that audience. It was a lot of bros, guys who were heavy into MMA and lifting, but they were really into unconventional training. Swinging the steel mace and the steel clubs and kettlebells and stuff that you don't typically find in your average big box gym. And one of the things I was tasked with doing was expanding the audience and trying to bring women in and using some of the people I knew and the content that I was doing at the mainstream fitness magazines for years to get a broader, more mainstream audience. So that's been my challenge, is trying to reach out to women, trying to get guys who would be intimidated by the swing of the maces and the kettlebells and the whole Rogan MMA, arm sleeve tattoo audience. We're trying to get beyond all that. So we've had a lot of growth in the last 2 years, which I'm proud of. And as far as a day in the life, it's not that dissimilar to what I was doing before. I mean, I love coming in the morning, and I'm reaching out to writers and interviewing fitness experts about different topics, different training ideas and mindset stuff and meditation and nutrition and all things that lead up, that can contribute to this idea of total human optimization, which is the company's slogan. It's anything and everything that's going to help you be a better you. So I'm under that umbrella now, and I'm thinking about not just bench pressing and biceps and all that, but how your mindset and what you eat and the friends that you have in your life and all that can contribute to improve your fitness goals and every other goal you have.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally like it's funny because I think a lot of us, we all come to the same conclusions, however we come to them. But like this is the story of my life right now. It's very much like so many clients that I work with. It's about how they want to lose fat, but God knows it's so little about giving them some numbers, because it's so much about really whole lifestyle, everything about it. We could talk all day about how you can lose weight eating Twinkies, but is someone really going to do that? No, it's like teaching them about whole foods and mindset. And I mean, I swear most of my work now is really teaching people how to manage stress better. Those things that just lead into everything. And I do love that catchline, total human optimization. It's such a good, it encapsulates things so well. So one of my favorite articles you've written in the last, I guess it's about a year ago or so, that we talked about, was you started to talk about how they're looking into how psychedelics are something that has worked to possibly alleviate depression. And we talk a lot about the societal constraints right now. People are using a lot of antidepressants, a lot of drugs, and we don't really know what those ramifications are. And I believe this actually tied into a mass shooting that had happened. and how we're looking now in science, and I think a big part of that probably being at Onnit and a lot of the talk that's happening in the kind of more artsy and techie community is of like things like microdosing and utilizing these psychedelics in a way to better human understanding. So talk to me a little bit about that article and talk to me about kind of what you've seen of that in your life.
Yeah, well, after that big Vegas shooting in the fall of 2017, we looked into it and found that the real underlying common denominator with most of these school shooters, mass shooters, is that they're on antidepressant medication. They've got a history of mental disorders, and they medicate with totally legal prescription drugs prescribed by their doctors. So it just seems like, more than anything else, that seems to be the common thread between them. And, these are perfectly legal drugs, and, so many people, Jeb, that we know are on these drugs, and they have legitimate psychotic side effects. So not to say that people shouldn't use these drugs, that they're inherently bad or anything like that. Obviously, everything has, it's the dose that makes the poison, right? But if these things are available and legal and prescribed, maybe there's something else too that's more natural that could also, give us some of the same benefits without those horrible side effects. So if you look there's a lot of research coming now out on psilocybin and other psychedelic drugs. They've tested it on PTSD suffering victims, veterans from these wars that we've been in for the last almost 20 years. And they're finding that within like one or two treatments with psychedelics, the depression goes away. I'm not going to say it's cured, but they get it under control. The PTSD gets under control. They see tremendous benefits in a short period of time with a drug that is, taken from a plant. It's natural. There's no major side effects. There's no chance of overdosing, no chance of death. And, having experimented with these things a little bit myself over the past year, they've opened a lot of doors for me. And, it's like it's a teacher in a classroom, really. Medicine isn't going to change you. It's just going to show you things about yourself. It's going to open doors you might not be able to open yourself through other means. And it's just going to show you a little bit about your life and what's underlying your thoughts. And what you choose to take from that experience is totally up to you. You can go with it and let it influence you and your behavior going forward and have that change your life, or you can turn your back on it. But it's interesting to have something that gives you that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I've made no qualms about the fact that I my history of drug use and all those things, I never counted psychedelics amongst those things that I thought were detrimental to my life. If anything, any psychedelic use I used, I have counted as being a huge benefit. I did a lot of it rather young, but I still say to this day, a lot of my worldview is formed from those experiences. I felt that whole doors of perception as a way to explain it is such an apt term, because I definitely looked at the world differently after. I feel like we talk about this interconnectedness, this wholeness. I think those things become much more apparent after that use. And I think another thing that it does is it gives us a little bit insight into how universally small we really are, which I think is an important thing in this narcissistic kind of Instagram famous society we live in, to remember that, like, at the end of the day, even the biggest impact we have is not really one that's going to be important long term. And that sounds depressing, but if you really think about it, it allows you to live your life in a way that you're like, okay, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to again, we talk about this. My happiness quotient has risen significantly since I found that my happiness is really based on my day to day. Like I wrote something on Facebook the other day about how happy I am because I got to load my dishwasher.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's one of those things. I'm like, one thing could have gone wrong, and I could be in prison now, and I would not be able to do that. Like, and it's, and I think that those psychedelics allow you to kind of see the world in that way of like, oh, like, these little things are all gifts. I would love to see it be at least be able to medically studied and move forward like that.
Yeah, well, we're getting there now. There's a lot of funding coming out for it. There's a lot of support. Joe Rogan has talked about it on his show, and I think we're not too far off from psychedelics being prescribed like these other drugs are, and maybe when they become as mainstream, we'll see less of these shootings. We'll see happier people interacting with each other more honestly and authentically, and one can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that opens the dialogue of talking about mental illness in any way, shape, or form. Because again, like I do think, like, yes, a lot of these antidepressants and anxiety drugs are very important for certain populations. They also become a way, instead of actually talking about issues that are going on, it allows people to say, "Oh, well, you don't feel good. Let's give you this, and you should magically feel better." But and I'm a big proponent of talk therapy, and I think that is, there's not medical funding for that. There's not much, so not approaching a problem and not discussing a problem in any depth. You don't get to ignore it and just hope it goes away. And I think a lot of times, maybe sometimes that's some of what this medication does.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that these, like any drug, the psychedelics are really just a supplement. They're an adjunct to other things you should be doing for yourself anyway, like getting into therapy, trying to create a good social circle for support. It's not like you take a pill and it fixes your problems. That's the mistake people have classically made with drugs. They just turn to the drug 100% and expect that to work miracles. It's just another stepping stone, but it seems to be a very effective one, and best of all, a natural one with few, if any, real side effects.
Yeah. So, in your experience, obviously, I think from what we've talked about, it seems to be like that. And in New York, it's actually becoming a pretty more common thing. Again, I'm in a lot of circles where there's a lot of artists and actors, and people that are pretty blasé about things like that. But now, do you see it as becoming something that seems a little bit more mainstream there? Is it something like it? Is it turning away from that thing of, you think of like a bunch of kids going to a Grateful Dead show and whacked out, as more, instead of thinking of it more of as as like an intellectual enterprise of a search, more kind of shamanistic in its approach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably in a very unique group here, a little enclave with On It, but I would say that most people I know here do experiment with these drugs, and they're pretty open-minded, humble people who are using them for the right reasons. It's not a matter of getting trashed on a Saturday night. They really this as a journey, and the psychedelics as a map for that journey. And I think that, I mean, I would have to credit their behavior and their accomplishments, I think, somewhat to these drugs for opening their minds and giving them the confidence to explore the dark corners and the scary things that usually hold us back. Because ultimately, it's fear and disconnectedness that prevent most of us from achieving any goal, I think.
I think that disconnectedness is a huge thing. 'Cause like you said about like socialization, and more so, I know personally, I found that that's been important for me in my growth is being active in attempting to stay more social, and not just being online, but it's real easy on Saturday when I'm tired from a long week to be like, I'm not going to do anything, but having a friend who says, hey, I've got this thing, and purposely going out, putting yourself out there and keeping that, because we do live more and more insulated, in a city of 8 million people. The fact that you could feel insulated is insane.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, as a writer, I think most writers like me are naturally introverted, and that's been one of the biggest challenges of my life, is kind of forcing myself to go out and interact with people and start conversations and network, when my natural inclination is to be alone and write my thoughts down on a paper and live inside my own head. And psychedelics have helped me with that, and being, again, I credit more than anything just to passion, following what I love, my dreams, and getting so immersed in this world. I've just sort of naturally surrounded myself with people who are like-minded, and some of the best friends I've ever had in my life, including yourself, have come out of fitness.
I think that's such a huge, just being able to be introspective, and also be able to turn that around to the point where that could also be a shortcoming. I think that's a huge step for a lot of people. All right. So that kind of ties up the stuff that I really wanted to get into. I think that's what I really wanted to grab out of this. I wanted to understand kind of how you have come to view yourself, and I think it's such an important thing for people to do, is to say like, hey, like these are the things that I did, and these things aren't gonna be the same for everybody, but to be like, this is how I got where I got to, and it really does come down to being passionate. And I think that tends to be it's probably going to be a pretty common thread amongst all these things. But so now I'm just doing a little closing because this is a little fun thing. You remember that show, The Actor Studio? Inside the Actor Studio, James Lipton. So he stole these 10 question thing from I think it was Prost or some writer, but it's an old parlor game. But so I altered a little bit, but stole it. Stole this, and it's a fun thing to kind of get people's inputs on what they would do. So I did it to myself, and I did it to Mike, the last guest. So you're getting it too. So first question: what is your favorite non-curse word?
Passion.
Passion. What's your least favorite word?
Fear.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Seeing acts of compassion, seeing people let down their walls, take down their masks, and just be authentic with each other.
And what turns you off?
I mean, apart from the opposite of that, I would think I think ego is the enemy of growth in any case.
What's your favorite curse word?
Motherfucker. That's the nastiest one. I break that out in rare occasions. It's getting serious if you say motherfucker.
What noise or sound do you love?
Nice acoustic guitar or just the sound of silence.
What noise or sound do you hate?
The horn on the subway train. As it's pulling into a station, I always thought that was the most grating sound.
Well, it's also the worst because it usually means it's going to run through and you're stuck waiting for the next train.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I can't get away from writing in any way, shape, or form. If I wasn't writing just prose journalism, I would be trying to write songs, and I still try to do that occasionally.
What profession would you not like?
Anything to do with math or science. The irony is I write a lot about math and science, but not firsthand. anything that would require me to be in the lab with the Bunsen burners or the scale, I couldn't handle.
I mean, some of the courses I'm taking now are so science heavy, and I look at them like, I like this, I love this, I'm passionate about it. But God, I don't know how people just spend their whole lives doing this.
Yeah, the technical stuff is too much for me.
All right, last one. If heaven exists, what would you like to have God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You've earned it. Nice.
All right, so that was awesome, man. I really appreciate it. And just to kind of recap, one of this interview is so important for me is because again, talking about Sean Perrine and what to be proud of, his legacy of anything. You've been to me exactly kind of that same thing. I mean, literally my entire career, where I am right now, would not exist without you. For people that are listening, for friends of yours that don't know, I mean, about how generous of a person you are. I mean, the time you spent with me, the times where we were training, the things you taught me, the people you introduced me to, literally set me on a course to where I am right now. And there's nothing I could ever do to thank you enough. It's really amazing to me. And it made me. You imbued the same passion into this that you have yourself, and the fact that anyone can do that, I think, is amazing. So I thank you, and I thank you for being on here, and congratulations on the book, and just congratulations on all your success. It's awesome to see.
Well, I appreciate that, man. But I think people should know, if they don't already about you, that you have exemplified everything that I've been talking about. I never met anybody who was more passionate or willing to work hard and just empty his cup. I mean, you had no preconceived notions about training or fitness, and not that I ever saw. I mean, you asked me lots of questions and you sought out information on your own time. And I mean, you were a hairdresser and you were a musician and you had your whole background. Nobody would have ever believed. We joke about your wedding photos when you were like 150 pounds. nobody would have ever guessed that you would have transformed yourself the way that you have, not only to this physical specimen that you are, but also that you're one of the industry leaders now. You've got this huge coaching business, and you're in the trenches training, and you've totally, completely transformed your body and your life with this passion to not only understand about training and fitness and how it can serve you, but how it can serve other people. And you're paying it forward now, and in such a radically short time. I met you maybe 5 years ago, and in that time, you shot from 1 to 100. It's amazing.
Well, thanks again. But yeah, so I'll see you. I'm gonna get down there to Austin soon. I've got to. I'm making my yearly trip list out now, and now that I can work remotely, I can kind of do whatever I want. So it's good. Thank you so much again, man. It was great talking to you. Again, super proud of you and amazed with everything you're doing.
You got it. We'll come down here. We'll go two-stepping and eat barbecue anytime.
All right.